No! Sharif, let me show you how to get back to sport following that shoulder injury the right way. Prehabbers, welcome back to the channel. Dr. Lauren Linus, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and today I am joined by one of my favorite people on this planet, Dr. Sharif Elmagar, also a Doctor of Physical Therapy. Today, we are gonna be chatting with you all about how to know when you are ready to get back to sport following a shoulder injury. We understand there is a lot of info out there, and we wanna make sure we give you all the right tools at the right time to feel like you can conquer this injury and get back to it. So before Sharif and I take you through some of our favorite exercises and 5 steps that you need to use to get back to sports, we want to talk first about shoulder injuries and what we see in athletes in regards to shoulder injuries. One of the main injuries we see is an anterior shoulder dislocation. So this often happens when the arm goes out into abduction, right? And then extreme ranges of external rotation, as Sharif is demonstrating. Now, when we get an anterior dislocation, we also have involvement of the labrum as well, because there's trauma that's put on that labrum with the dislocation. So that's one of the main shoulder injuries that we see.
Yep. Something else you can commonly see is what's known as an AC joint separation. So the AC joint is essentially where the collarbone meets the top of your shoulder blade. So that's the acromion and the clavicle coming together. So what happens is what's known as a fouche injury, which is falling onto an outstretched arm or falling onto your side. And basically a sprain is when you have some damage to the ligaments that connects that joint together there. So sometimes if you see somebody that has an injury to their shoulder, like an AC joint separation, you may see that they're holding their arm in this sling position and almost giving a little bit of support to their elbow because they want to almost kind of take away some of that what they're having down in that shoulder when they're in that injury position. Something else you could see is what's known as a tendinopathy. Essentially, there's a lot of tendons which connect the muscle to the bone in the shoulder, such as the rotator cuff tendons, that can become damaged over time, and they can essentially change the quality of the tendon tissue. So sometimes you may see something that's known as a tendinopathy in the shoulder, which is usually due to some type of overuse. If you're a throwing athlete or you do something where you're using your shoulder a lot over time, that can develop a tendinopathy.
Yeah, and sometimes too, we just see athletes with general shoulder pain and we aren't really sure why they're experiencing shoulder pain. But today, our goal is to show you all 5 steps that you need to follow to be able to feel confident returning to sport after that shoulder injury. So let's do it. So the first step to getting back to your sport following a shoulder injury is just injury prevention to begin with. This means partaking in a sport-specific strength training program to make sure that you are strong enough to be able to partake in your sports so you don't get injured. So I'm gonna have Sharif demonstrate an exercise here. A good way to work on strengthening the shoulder is working on plyometric exercises. So he's gonna lay on the Swiss ball here. He's gonna start with his hands up in kind of that Y position, good. And then he's gonna work on dropping the ball, okay? Plyometrics are a really, really good way to make an exercise very sport specific. So he's gonna start with about 30 to 50 touches to start. And then as he gets stronger, he can work through a bigger range of motion, ideally shooting for about 120 to 150 touches. But again, working on a strength program to make sure you don't get injured is step number 1 to getting back to sport. Nice job, Sharif. All right, from there, let's say you do get injured, you do deal with a sport injury. The second thing we wanna do is manage your pain and your range of motion. So I'm gonna have Sharif pop down in an all-4 position again. And this is one of my favorite exercises to work on for individuals who've had shoulder injuries just to maintain good range of motion. He's gonna do a thread the needle in this position. So he's gonna take one arm, he's gonna reach under his body, really allow the mid-back to rotate and also let that shoulder blade move on his rib cage, okay? This is also a really great exercise because he's having to work on stabilizing through that arm that is planted. But again, we wanna work on sport-specific range of motion. So likely, a baseball pitcher is gonna need a little bit more external rotation than someone like a basketball player, maybe a volleyball player. So make sure that it is specific to the individual and to their sport. Now, as your range of motion improves, step number 3 is working on improving our endurance, our strength, and our power. So I'm gonna have Sharif go into a posterior lunge to a shoulder press. Yep, so this is a good way to work on core strength. He's working on overhead strength. He's working on, glute strength, leg strength. So it's really starting to tie everything together as your symptoms improve. If I want Sharif to be a little more explosive, then he can really step back into that lunge and then drive up, make it a little more explosive. Yep, so we want to start working on endurance, strength, and power. This is one of our favorite exercises to do so. Now let's say that Sharif was dealing with an anterior shoulder dislocation, right? As we mentioned, that can be a result of too much abduction, abduction, and external rotation. So getting into that external rotation may be a little bit scary for him. So step number 4, we want to make sure that we're working on imagery and psychology for return to sport. A great way to do that is using external cues. So I can have Sharif come into that more upright row and then rotate back into external rotation. And let's say that's kind of scary for him. I can give him a cue of, hey Sharif, I want you to rotate the arm back till you feel my hand. Good, and that's just working through a small range of motion. Now, as his symptoms improve, as he starts to build confidence with that, I can slowly bring my hand back, provide him an external cue working through a bigger range of motion. And then as his confidence improves there, I can say, okay, Sharif, punch up overhead. Now come back down and return to that starting position. So using external cues as needed just to help your athletes improve in their confidence is a really, really good way to do so. All right, that last step is making sure you are ready to return to sport or performance. Now, return to sport is more returning to practice. Returning to performance is making sure you are ready for that next big game. A really good way to do that is working on providing external perturbations or things that Sharif's body is really gonna have to respond to on the fly, unpredictability. So he's gonna do a walking lunge here with an overhead press that's earthquake. So we tied a resistance band around the kettlebell. This means his muscles are having to work really hard to adjust in real time to be able to keep that arm overhead. And he's having to respond to those unpredictable external factors. So finding ways to challenge yourself in unpredictable environments is a good way to make sure that you are ready to get back to performance and go and win that next big game. Now, unfortunately, there is no battery of tests or a specific test yet that we can use to make sure that we are ready to return to sport, but following these 5 tips is a really good start. So again, number 1, making sure that you're doing a strengthening program to prevent injury in the first place is a good start. Number 2, if you do get injured, manage your pain and work on range of motion that is specific to you and your sport. Number 3, we want to start working on building up endurance, strength, power. Number 4, you want to make sure that your confidence is ready to go and you're mentally ready to get back to the game. And then number 5, we want to start working on that return to sport, but more importantly, that return to performance, getting back to the game in those more unpredictable environments. All right, I want you guys to go try these exercises. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and we can't wait to see you out there at your next game. We'll see you next time.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Thanks for watching the video and taking control of your health.
Make sure to smash that subscribe button and check out our other YouTube content.
And did you know that we have a website and an app that you can prehab your entire body? Be sure to check out the link in the description.